Welcome back. Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And in studio, it's a brother I never met in person till just now, but definitely heard a lot of stories over time, really between a lot of how this music gets captured on film from a couple people that I look at and say, yo, they're my people. So first off, Merciless Amir. Shout out to Merciless Amir and all he's doing in hip hop, right? So that energy alone, and it's like, Merce is like, yeah, man, that's my man's. And I'm like, okay, all right. That stamp of approval is A1. And then Khaled from a whole different realm is like, yeah, that's my bro, man. We've always known and where hip hop lies. So we definitely know cameras, hip hop, and music. And not to mention, really brought it full circle with how music really comes together and how it's been coming together for a long time here in the city of Detroit, putting it on a national platform in documentary format about beat machines and how God gave them to us so we could do some things. Mr. Kristian Hill, how are you today?
Oh, fantastic. That was a great introduction, bro. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Respect. Thank you. So these Detroit is Different, as you're a person that has followed the arc of Detroit is Different for a while, seeing some of the growth of it. You always know it starts with the roots of you in the city, man. How many generations deep are you and your peoples to Detroit?
Bro, I think my grandmother's, my great-grandmother moved here on my mother's side originally, probably in the 20s, 30s. And my grandmother, Mabel White, she was a teacher at Kettering and back in the day. And bro, she taught home economics. She was
Wow.
So, she was a caterist. So as I grew up in the the early 70s, bro, that was like my first job. So from my mother's side, bro, we go back to Hastings Street.
Okay.
And we had a grocery store on Hastings Street. My grandfather ran numbers on Hastings Street. On my father's side, my grandmother was I want to say I don't want to say a maid, but she kept the home of Senator Levin.
Okay.
And so growing up, bro, she would always talk about the Levins in such a way. And bro, it was kind of like my first kind of introduction to, like, I guess, politics, and then Coleman Young, this being Coleman Young City, I grew up in that era where, man, just having the Coleman Young, just having him as like an idol almost, like, or this figure that really made you just feel like Detroit was just the utopia of blackness, like, during them eras. So yeah, man, we go back prior to that, but my family really, my grandmother, I talked about her, but she was Coleman's private caterist.
All right, so I definitely got to get into those stories, but you unpacked a lot right there. So first, let's go back to great-grandma. From where did she come to make it to Detroit?
Bro, they came from Georgia.
Okay.
And on my father's side, they came from South Carolina.
Okay, so Georgia, we know, 2 states, Alabama, Georgia, the most black folks all from Detroit make their way here. South Carolina, a little bit different. A lot of folks from South Carolina go further East Coast. So I'm guessing you got fam in New York and all of that movement too. What from South Carolina brought them this way?
Bro, I believe after my grandfather passed, that my grandmother made her way this way. And my father, this is where he grew up, the old West Side. And bro, I want to say 2010, 2011, me and my father spent a lot of time filming the old West Side and his stories and things of that nature. Just the homes he grew up in, the friends he grew up around. It's like Elliott Hall, Judge Strong. There was a few other people that grew up in his neighborhood and that he was super proud to share with me,
So you also are mentioning and dropping gems of very historic figures throughout the lexicon as you talk about like that black excellence of Detroit. Attorney Elliott Hall, Judge Strong, Judge Craig Strong, and people know him for the chopper suits and all of that, being the flyest dude always in the room. Um, Soon to come, Detroit is different. We're gonna actually do something in his closet too. We gotta we gotta expose.
Got to, bro.
So uh, along with that, you talked about Senator Levin, which we're more familiar with Senator Carl Levin, but I'm guessing because you're talking about grandma, you're talking about Theodore Levin, who the federal building downtown is named after. And that relationship between families and politics, which still, name recognition carries. I don't know how many people kind of make those relationships.
Bro, you know what's crazy? That as you talk about that, man, when my grandmother remarried, she married a gentleman by the name of Orange Jenkins, right?
Wow.
And Orange was their driver.
Wow.
So they worked for the Levins for years, and just that level of my man stayed sharp, always looked good, drove a nice car, was very, very personable, and looking back on it, I didn't know the dynamics of stepfather, step grandfather, and all that type of stuff, but just his, I remember his presence and them working. They really were proud and prideful that they had those jobs and kind of their relationships. And I remember the Levins treated them well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and also the Levins, so people can kind of understand the story of just the changes in the city of Detroit. So we're looking at like communities like mine and where my home is, and definitely like in Redford, but like these are predominantly Jewish communities at one point in time, hence the Levins and their lineage throughout, and they transition into black communities. And then you spoke about a grandma into, first off, home economics, KE Kettering. So shout out to KE. And everything. I mean, they kept the K, even though Kettering ain't there no more for Lord knows what development. But as I always uplift, and Mama Shu will be a testament to this, it is two, even being a Northwestern person, so I'm gonna say this, of many of the high schools that no longer are around, there are two annual events that you want to go to if you can get to. On the west side, you want to go to the McKenzie all-class reunion. And on the east side, if you can make your way to a Kettering all-class reunion, you are in for a treat. But home economics, that is, talk about like a throwback to the past, because people are like, what is home economics?
Bro, she taught that for years. I've recently found a lot of her recipes and things of that nature that she wrote by hand, that she would share with students, some of her lesson plans. But her name was Mabel White. And as growing up, bro, she was a caterist. And we, every Saturday, we would go and she would do events. And over the years, bro, she was Aretha Franklin, cooked for Aretha Franklin, made chitlins for Aretha Franklin and greens, and just the town. She was one of the celebrated caterists during that era, and even the Tigers took her to Japan, to kind of make meals and share with the Japanese people what a Detroit meal would be, and I even think they took chitlins to Japan.
Wow, that is so as something I'm gonna say, like I'm gonna take another person's vote on those, but more so just to try to be a caterer in that era. I don't even know, even today, like where if I had to make an American meal in Japan, what store I'm looking for to find that. So I'm guessing she really has some strong relationships with those Tigers.
Yeah, I can't imagine trying to get the chitlins through customs.
What in the get it through.
Yeah,
get it through. So with that, also this entrepreneurial spirit that you see Did you make those ties into like growing this business? And how do you believe she navigated this space being a woman in business at that time? Something that people may expect, quote unquote, but still leveraging business is always a task whenever you jump in the market,
Oh man,
whatever it is.
bro. She brought in students. We had family. You know, my uncles ran the business for a while, and my mother, she was a teacher. She participated to help just keep it going. Um, but bro, my older brother worked for her.
Mm.
My older brother Ruben, and he kind of took over the business to a certain degree. But it was like during the era like Carmen Harlan. You know, we would do her Christmas party every year and things of that nature. But it got to a point to where my grandmother, you know, of course, you know, started getting a little older, and once she kind of got sick, it was more of a my uncle took over, but it was never they were never able to leverage it up to a level of where we were a full thriving business. You know what I mean? It just
And
kind of leveled off.
oftentimes many businesses are like that because the visionary that starts that business is so instrumental in so many of the dynamics of how it functions. As that person is not as actively involved, even with the best efforts of who follows, it functions different because that person that had that growing passion. So as we talk about these growing passions, I've already heard some precursors of it, but let's talk about your neighborhood. You mentioned your mom's a teacher. Where do you grow up first? I don't know where you move around. What neighborhood?
Man, it's funny. I grew up on the west side, 7 Mile and Snowden, 7 Mile and like Otter Drive, Schaefer area.
Mhm.
And it was the pre-Greater Grace area, Greater Grace era. Greater Grace hadn't blown up to this big multi-size church yet. It was still just one level, and they kind of had a block. You know?
So is the amusement park there when you growing up?
No, yes, Edgewater was there, but Edgewater was, let's say, 5 to 7 miles going, was that west? Yeah, that's going west.
Okay, because we're looking
That's
at the
Lash.
original Greater Grace that's now like, I wanna say, is that Greater Emmanuel? Because you said 7 Mile Snowden.
Yep.
Okay,
The
now I
original
know.
Greater Grace.
Right where we're looking at, like, off, like, that 7 Mile Lodge exit that we're thinking
Yes,
of.
yes.
Now I'm there.
To be more clear, yes, I do realize that the Greater Grace moved, but prior to that, man, before they built that big church there on 7 Mile and Hartwell and Schaefer,
Mhm.
bro, it was a one kind of story building that kind of like uh, was on the whole block of Schaefer. And then once they broke it down, destroyed it and started building this other building, bro, that's when the neighborhood began to kind of like change. You know, you would see these construction sites. We would be playing in the construction sites and things of that nature. But man, that neighborhood, man, I'm still cool with, everybody I grew up with in that neighborhood. Bro, I went to Mumford, I went to Obion, Vernon Primary.
Mhm.
So growing up, man, that was my home. You know what I mean? That neighborhood.
So Mumford, as we have some historic Mumford stories on here, as Howie Bell uplifted. You did not want to go to Mumford back in the day. What was your Mumford experience like?
Bro, I went to Mumford summer school first. So coming out of Bobian, it was almost like, oh, I don't want to, didn't want to go to Bobian. I didn't want to go to Mumford. And I went to Bobian for 9th grade.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you go for ninth? That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah, I went to Bobian for 9th grade. And then my parents, I was scared to go to Mumford in the beginning because of coming out of Bobian, you knew that nexus of like 8 miles, 7 miles, and then you had like the 6 miles, the PAs. You just had this whole kind of like nexus of what you thought was gangs and people. But once I got to Mumford, everybody was cool. It was cool, but I didn't get to Mumford until my 11th grade year.
Okay.
And bro, I have some amazing memories, of my time in Mumford. I had some great teachers. And sure, it wasn't Cass, you know, by any means, but dude, the people who I went to school with, bro, were authentic and just I still am in touch with a lot of people I went to high school with, and I can call them when I need them, you know, and they still answer the phone. So just growing up on that side of town and going to Mumford and Beaubien, uh, gave me lifelong relationships.
Okay. All right. So during this time, like I say, a lot of hip hop stories I've heard from you. What's your introduction to hip hop? When do you start getting connected to just hearing it? And what's the relationship?
You know, if we step back just a little, let's say 83, 84, we started hearing, of course, Rapper's Delight and some of the early releases, but dance music became more of progressive music, became
Mhm.
more of what we were interested in. And that became our entree into like dance music and DJing. And as that began to grow, that's when Run DMC dropped It's Like That.
Mm,
When Run DMC dropped It's Like That, um, that became something that you had to have in your record crate, you
mm,
know, and jam on it, you had to have that in your record crate. So of course you were Planet Rock, play at your own risk, Tommy Boy. You used to have to have those records in your playlist. So electro is really where we're starting to find like where the nexus is happening on the dance floor. So Captain Rap, Bad Times. So that's hip hop, but it's with it's 120 some beats per minute. You know what I
mhm,
mean? It's a dance track. So hip hop was still uh trying to find itself. So I would say by 85, 86, when Brass Monkey, when Def Jam dropped the Beastie Boys album, everybody, Brass Monkey,
mhm.
86, 87, those tracks. So man, all that time, me and Amir are DJing together. Me and Amir met when
And
we
that's where I was gonna
Merciless
say
Amir.
you talked about being in the crate. So for people that don't
Mm.
may not have this recollection, but a DJ disc jockey at one point in time, the discs were vinyl LPs, so the records. Nowadays, I know you see a laptop on a table and a person usually operating a playlist, but at one point in time, DJs carried in crates of records and turntables, and that's how DJs perform. So you spoke about things being in your crate.
Mm.
Before we even get to how y'all meet, when do you start spinning?
Bro, I started spinning 10th grade. I met Ester. He was one of my Al Ester, who's a DJ, legendary DJ
Mm,
here in Detroit. Him and my brother were friends. And
mhm,
I kind of knew what a DJ was just because my brother was playing this new music, progressive dance music, Beat the Street by Sharon Red,
mm.
Music is the Answer. You would hear, of course, D Train. You'd hear all this very polished dance music, but that wasn't like the stuff you heard on the radio.
Yeah.
And bro, my brother, I want to say probably around ninth grade, he went to Michigan State. So
Mhm,
he came home during the break and had a party. And at that party, the DJs were Al Ester, Ray Berry, another who passed, rest in peace, and
mm,
another DJ who passed, named Steve Dunbar.
mm.
So these people were at his party, and if even go back just a couple years earlier in eighth grade, a gentleman by the name of Steve Dunbar, who I mentioned, he DJ'd my eighth grade party.
Mm.
So I had this kind of fascination with what they were doing, the blending of the records. And it wasn't until my brother had that party that they were breaking down at the end of the night. And, 3 in the morning, I'm watching them start to spin and have a good time. And they invited me behind the table. And that moment, Al was kind of like, this is how you do it,
Mm.
showing me how to blend. And he was a big supporter of my early DJ career. And once Amir and I became kind of like a tandem, Al was a very much of a supporter of us both.
Okay, and now also as you uplift this, it would be DJ Cruz time. So DJ Cruz would go and approach different sets or parties. It's been uplifted from one of the more classic ones, Hump the Grinder, talking about his DJ crew and those that would go from place to place and how things would get blended and spun. Stacey Hale being one of the few women DJs that was in that mix too.
And it's dope you bring both Hump the Grinder and Stacey Hale up because bro, Stacey was a legend then.
Mhm.
There was a nightclub called Cheeks. It was on 8 Mile and Schaefer area. And bro, her the Wizard Jeff Mills and at the time Al Ester, bro, dude, they kind of held court. And this was when prior to Stacey being on the radio, the Stacey in the mix, and that's where her career, that's where I intersect with her career. That's when I find out who she is. And dude, I parked cars at Cheeks.
Wow.
You know, so it was like just to be able to be like 16 at that time, just to be able to kind of listen to that on a nightly and see the effect of, you know, people coming to hear the music. And, you know, it was something that would forever have an impact on me because I was, you know, as a kid, I was able to be at the nightclub. You know what I mean? I'd come in while everybody's partying, let me get a soda, you know, and they could kind of look. And bro, it was one of those things that even today, when we're in nightclubs filming and stuff like that, I can remember those times.
So you also, the other thing with DJing, equipment. Where do you go? When do you get your own tables? How do you go about it? How do you get your own speakers?
That's amazing. That's a
all
great
of
question.
this.
It's a great question. There was a gentleman by the name of Damon Flanoy. He lived around the block from a couple blocks away from me, and he was DJing, and I would go over his house and I'd just watch him, and I can remember my man licking his finger and scratching it, and he could blend, and he was a great dude. And one day he was just like, "Bro, you want to buy my equipment?" And that's how I get my first direct drive turntables.
Wow.
And my parents took them, put them in my parents' basement, and they had speakers and, you know, a old hi-fi stereo system. So, you know, get some RCA jacks and plugged in your mixer into the hi-fi, you know, the realistic mixer. There was just, you know, 4 channels and a crossfader, you know, a little volume. And bro, that's where the the fascination then became like actionable. Like I was able to then kind of like start to figure this thing out. And my mother gave me the room to do it.
So I want to give a little bit more technical for people that don't know. So back to like DJing and crossfaders and a mixer. So like I say, right now, all of this stuff is on the laptop. But at one point in time, if you had turntables, you obviously have a turntable to your left and a turntable to your right. And depending upon how you work the crossfader, it's like I'm listening in my headphones. Like that's why you see most DJs where one ear on and one ear off back then. And if you watch any of those classic movies like Juice and looking at Omar Epps or something, so I'm hearing from the speaker, obviously, what's here. And then in my ear, I'm hearing what's on this fade. So you're working the fade and then you're working the blend. And DJs will practice how to blend these different records. And the better they got, then it's like, now I want to break a certain record, meaning a break a record would be a record most people don't know, most people wouldn't play. I'm going to put this into my playlist so that I can break this record and get this crowd familiar with. And DJs had such more of let's use one of my favorite terms, autonomy, freedom to play what they wanted to play, however they wanted to play. Whereas nowadays, I would say that if you're in the hottest club in Vegas, LA, Miami, Detroit, Chicago, you're probably gonna hear like almost the same playlist from every DJ. From DJ to DJ to DJ to DJ, it was a point in time where each DJ kind of had their signature sound and feel to move the crowd to dance, or definitely you wanted to dance and get the party going and start it. So this all kind of plays into that culture. I want to uplift
Bro,
that.
thank you for, like, breaking it down and making it more visual, for people as they listen to this, but,
Mhm.
bro, it was during that time, bro, that, the DJ also provided surprise. You know, it wasn't just like, "Oh, this song is coming." You know, the whole thing was to be, original and to, introduce, like you said, break a record, but introduce new music that you had that nobody else was playing. Like, during this era, people would black out the labels of the records. You
Mm.
know, they would cross out the names.
Wow.
You would travel to Chicago or New York to buy records and then come back and be the first one to play them, you know, for your audience.
Mm.
It was just more, you were able to really, put your own personal kind of, feelings and spin, your feelings into your set to what you were spinning. And we would spend time together trying to create like a dope set and mix. Like, you know, me and Amir would do 4 turntables, like, in which we got from Jeff Mills and Ray Berry. You know, we saw them do it at Holiday Hall on the East Side, and, shit, we immediately went back to his house. I brought my turntables over his house, connected them to his hi-fi system, and had my mixer. He did the same, and then we were really, trying to do stuff that, we saw we were inspired by, but it was stuff that, you didn't see all the time, you know?
That, and also this uplifts, this interview is uplifting somebody else I need in here, but my relationship with Tyrone Bradley and the record pool.
Mm,
So like
mm,
record pools mattered too, because DJs would come together and they would have record pools where they would have like either bulk purchases or usually a lot of promotional access to new music would come through these record pools.
mm.
Plus, they, I mean, you get Kim James and Tyrone Bradley together. I mean, it's gonna be a colorful enough conversation sometimes just to
Mhm.
sit and take in the energy of what that is as well.
Yeah, bro, the record pool era is where, you know, you names like, King Collier, Dwayne in the Mix, Bradley.
Mhm.
I also wanna say, you know, Greg Collier is, my man Hicks, Charles Hicks,
Yeah.
like, of course, Stacey. You know, we could even get a little deeper. We could be like Delano Smith, Daryl Shannon, you know, those guys from that era. Of course, Direct Drive, the DJ crew that kind of really put pressure on cats to be better, you know, present their mixes and things better. Like, yeah, bro, that there was a time when you talked about the hip hop. At one point in time, the DJ was the was the top of the food chain in hip hop. And it was and in just the community, you know, the DJ. The rapper had to grow, and eventually it became kinda the rapper became kinda the star. And, bro, I think once that started to happen, you kinda, saw, DJ culture kind of, not to say take a step back, but the MC became the front man.
And as you uplift that, I gotta just give one more shout out because I know it'd be like LaRock Bullock, shout out
Mm,
LaRock. And as that time shifts, my friend Sterling Toles often says this, is how we receive the music has a whole lot to do with even everything we hear.
mm,
So as the MC becomes more prominent, other things are starting to happen in music, including like the Walkman. The experience becomes less of a live experience and more of a personal experience. And in the live experience, the DJ is such a star. Hence, that's why you have the song, Jam Master Jay, Eric B is on the cut, I'm the rapper, he's the DJ. Like all of this just is like playing throughout. And it would be almost like an arc of every rapper you know who their DJ is at one point in time. As things transition more so to the album era in hip hop and CDs and Walkmans and that personal experience, the DJ just doesn't sit in that space in that same prominence, even though the DJ provided the other asset of you have a great DJ, the DJ is on the pulse of the other music that's playing. So having a DJ present in a recording helps contextualize where the music has outlets to as well. So
Bro, a song from that era is called Last Night a DJ Saved My Life.
Mhm.
Bro, that typifies kind of how the DJ was held with such esteem. You know, you really you didn't have songs Last Night a Rapper Saved My Life. You know what I mean?
No.
It was Last Night a DJ Saved My Life. And bro, that song was people's favorite song. We would scratch it, you know, last night I did. You know, you would be cutting up the acapella and things of that nature. Somebody who was dope at that was Gary Chandler early on. You know what I mean? Like just stuff that you would remember from that era. Like the DJ just had such a you know, he had such a prominence that you held him to everybody kind of wanted to figure out how to be a DJ, you know?
And I almost can like trigger it. I usually, when we have this part of a discussion, just in social, I always say you can see the difference between NWA's first album and their second album. Because on their first album, it's like dance music cuts. It's just stuff that you just,
Give them something to dance to.
Yeah. By the time it gets to their second album and they're the world's most dangerous group, it's a whole different
It's
experience.
An appetite for destruction. Yes, that era, like you said, from like, what is that, 89 to 92, that transition, that's also when you start to see the I don't wanna say the death, but the kind of the beginnings of Black people's separation from dance music. You know, once conscious rap kind of begins to go away and, you know, hip house and things of that nature, you know, by the early 90s, this is when the culture begins to kind of go towards more of it being more of a white thing as opposed to this was an underground, you know, Black thing that was happening, you know, or that's how we were looking at it. We didn't really see, there weren't any white people coming to these parties, high school, when we were in high school and early college. But by the time you got to the 90s, the music had changed. You didn't hear a lot of the songs that we grew up on at the clubs anymore. The playlist that you described, like that's how it became kind of like you would start to hear all the popular rap everywhere you went around the country.
And during this time, you go from DJing, and now the whole world knows you really more so to film. When do you make this transition?
Man, bro, I once scratching really started taking off and you kind of had to scratch, that's when I was pretty much done. You know? My last real mixing and things of that nature, I did Mojo's Mixer Dome. And I was able to tell Mojo, he was like, so where do you see yourself going in 20 years? You know, Mojo asking me that. And I'm like, I want your job, Mojo.
Hilarious.
You know?
Yeah.
And so just wanting to kind of, I guess, do something bigger just over time. Man, I left Detroit 87, went to Wilberforce in Ohio, you know, left Wilberforce in Ohio, 88, went to Morgan State in Baltimore, which was...
Wow, so you go from black college to black college.
Boom. And then while I'm at Morgan State, bro, that's where I start dreaming of wanting to go to New York. It's early hip hop. It's the Daisy Age. Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul. They kind of gave you, they were the soundtrack of my college years. And Bro, I got into a graduate school called the New School for Social Research, and then I moved to New York. And while I was in New York, I lived in Harlem. I only lived in Harlem.
So, New School for Social Research.
Mhm.
What was that?
I wanted to be Coleman. That's at the time I wanted to be mayor. I wanted to be Coleman. I wanted to be like Coleman because
Okay.
he gave, man, the Coleman Young era, bro. It was so beautiful for growing up and just having like a lot of the Detroit leadership be the same, be somebody, the butcher, baker, and the candlestick maker, they was all Black.
Yeah.
And so you always had those role models right there. And Coleman's political largesse, his personality was something that you saw in yourself. It's something you could see in yourself that you wanted in yourself. And bro,
And you also had this framing from family too,
Mhm.
of having some inroads of some political ties,
That's
of
the
even
idea.
meeting a Coleman Young and
My grandmother
the
worked
Levin
for him.
family.
Yeah.
Yes.
But dude, that had me studying urban policy. I
Mm.
studied urban policy, and while I was there in New York, bro, that's where I started wanting to figure out how to be a storyteller. I didn't know how I was gonna do it. Bro, I remember having conversations with people and being like, "Dude, I wanna do a TV show. It's called If You Cookin', I'm Coming." And we
Wow.
would, you know, that's back when you could get like a camcorder, so we would film ourselves making like, gumbo and stuff like that, and me and my
Mhm.
buddy Eric Collier. And, bro, that's where the seed was planted.
So this is like you say Harlem,
96.
96 Harlem.
I
So
mean, 90, excuse me. I was in Harlem from 91 to 96.
so from 91 to 96, this is definitely a different Harlem than what exists now.
Mm.
Now, the first time I go to Harlem is in 96. And let's put it like this. I mean, that was a different energy than now. It just like I tell people, when I first went to Harlem, I was like, wow, this feels like a big Highland Park. Like just massive. And that was the culture and the energy that I remember. What do you remember about touching down in Harlem in 91 and what spoke to you to stay centered there at the time?
Bro, soon as we got there, bro, I had a friend that I knew from college, hit him up, and he walked us around from Harlem from 110th Street in Lenox all the way up to 151st in St. Nick.
Mm.
And in that, we were looking for apartments, and I found my apartment. Me and my buddy Bill, we found our apartment on 151st in Convent,
Mm.
right next to the Dirty 30 precinct.
Mm.
And bro, we called that home. And we stayed there for a couple years while we were going through the new school. But Harlem just was like, being from Detroit, it was like another Black Mecca for us to kind of go and seat ourselves in. And I never did the Brooklyn thing or nothing like that.
Mm.
I was always in Harlem. And
Okay.
even when I go back now, I stay in Harlem, you know what I mean? So, I even watched an episode of one of your shows, and a woman was on here, and, I forgot her name. It was one of our elders.
Yeah, Miss Annie Handy
Yeah.
was saying that she was like, I think every Black person should at least live in Harlem for a year. That was what she said.
Yes. So, I identified with that because,
Mhm.
it put so much pride in me in terms of, you be walking past the Apollo or walking, down Covenant. I'm saying the street wrong. It's like 138th. It's like this beautiful block that they have in Harlem. I
Mm.
mean, Harlem was dope. It was like a great playground. And yeah, it was a different time. It was a little seedy, but it was New York. It was old New York, bro.
Yeah.
And just being able to be there and be in Harlem at that time, bro. There was a youth center called the Valley, and at the youth center, I got a job, and my job was a researcher on a television.
So that lines you into that future, but I also want to
Mhm.
stop at this moment in time because of where your interests lie too. You're also watching a transition in New York from a mayor Dinkins,
who I work for, yeah.
to a Mayor Giuliani.
Mm.
And that is Mayor Dinkins in even the way that I don't even know if the historical perspective is correct about the Mayor Dinkins era of New York versus now, I think, with certain realities about Mayor Giuliani presenting itself in other ways, it possibly will be reframed. How are you even looking at and processing this transition? Because when people talk about how New York has changed, I look at a lot of that at the feet of during the Giuliani administration.
Bro, man, during the Dinkins era, it was almost like, to me, a continuation of my Coleman Young years. Even when I was in Baltimore, Kurt Schmoke was a kind of a firebrand and a different type of politician. He was the mayor of Baltimore, and then when I get to New York, Dinkins was the mayor. And bro, worked in city government, got to go to the mayor's gig. It was like just, again, an extension of what I knew urban politics to be.
Mhm.
When Giuliani came, bro, it was it became a police state
Mm.
in the sense that man, New York used to have housing police, transit police, as well as the the NYPD. Right? And, Giuliani, when he came in, he immediately kinda melded the 3 of them into just the police.
Mm.
And in doing that, bro, they were, heavy-handed in how, they made that transition. In 94, 95, I got beat up by the police,
Wow.
and, on 125th Street at the subway station, like 125th and, Lenox.
Hmm.
And, bro, that changed my whole game about New York, and eventually from there, in '96, I moved to LA.
Okay. This incident, and I know that that's definitely going to be something that's so heavy.
Mm.
Is this transit, housing, or just NYPD, and you're just walking down the street?
No, actually, dude, I got off the subway and I bumped into a transit cop, and, getting off the subway, we hit shoulders, and that started a whole exchange where, they were, in their words, ejecting me from the train station.
Wow.
And, while they was ejecting me from the train station, bro, that's where it got physical. Next thing I know, bro, I'm flipped upside down. You know what happens
Yeah.
in this thing. And, thank God my boy William Gibbons was across the platform. He saw what was happening across the platform and came over to the
Mm.
other side and was like, "Yo, what's up?
Mm.
What's going on?" And they kinda let me go.
Wow.
And, bro, that, like I said, from that moment on, like, New York, I was on a short time schedule. It was time to go. You know what I
Already
mean?
seeing the changes.
Yeah, yeah, and how they were affecting me personally. Because then,
Mhm.
not to spend too much time on this, but, at that point, then you're filing a lawsuit against the police.
I was gonna say, I'm
Yeah,
guessing
it is a whole process, and then you find yourself, having to wade and waddle in kinda this misery that happened to you on one night in order to get some justice, and financial restitution. You gotta do all the stuff that bro, you don't wanna be going to the shrink, and you gotta go to the doctor, and you just doing stuff that, your lawyer, now you got a lawyer, it becomes this whole thing to where, I no longer could, enjoy New York, and I couldn't really process kinda like working for the man and just getting beat up by the cops, like, dude, it was just time to go.
I got you.
You know what I'm saying?
LA. And you moved to LA at a time,
Uh, post riots.
post riots, which we definitely know also another at one point in time key black political figure is mayor that
Tom Bradley.
transitions out. And now '96, the other thing is you got this is post-trial. This is post-O.J. Simpson trial. So a tone of a lot happening and LA. We talking about death row era. Tupac Shakur is eventually murdered and this plays out.
Dude, two things. When I got to LA, bro, there was this comedy store. It was one of the first kind of like black comedy stores in Leimert Park. I'm forgetting the name of it now. But I had a cousin that worked there. So I would go to the comedy store and watch, Jamie Foxx. You would see Joe Torre. You would see these comedians. So I was like, dude, this is what I want to do. I want to do comedy. And I want to learn how to use the computer. I want to edit. It's kind of like those were my goals: comedy and learn how to use the computer. And bro, I learned how to use the computer before I really could tell a joke.
Wow.
And I thought I was funny, but dude, the ability to kind of be in LA. Had a cousin when I got there. I was like, he doesn't have a job. How does he do this, right? But he had a level of hustle that a lot of cats from LA had. And when I got there, kind of like cats in New York, if they didn't have a job, some of them hustled, but some of them just was chilling. In LA, cats was chilling and they was hustling. And you kind of saw people who were doing who had non-traditional ways of living. When I got to LA, it wasn't I'm not talking like crime or anything, but just they had a more self-sufficient way of living in this town.
I got a story for you. One of the comedians I know, I don't even know if you want to share this, so I'll just tell the story. So we're in LA and we're bouncing around with some of the comedians I know. And during the time, he was like, okay, yeah, we don't really take the subway a lot, but this is the time to take the subway. And then I turned around and I looked and he was selling a tourist map. And I was like, he was like, yeah, man, I got to make mine while I'm out here. So it's just one of those weird things where it's like, you just wouldn't expect him to work in that angle. And he was doing security at the comedy store, but now he's like on the wave of like touring with everybody and everything. But it was just interesting to see, like, for a second it's stopping, and then now as I track the day, he's like chilling with us, but then he'll stop for a second, sell a couple maps, and then keep it moving. Like, it was interesting,
bro.
You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
LA during that era, bro. It was a way. Like that's when like Black Hollywood, like, you come, it was prior to Black excellence, it's like Black Hollywood. And just coming there at that time, bro, it was like a dream come true, and being in LA and just kind of the sunshine and immediately, it took me a few years, but I eventually got a camera and I made a film about my dad.
Okay. And you talked about learning editing first. And that's, I don't even know what software you use it. Right now, Adobe Premiere or DaVinci Resolve, a lot of people, it's more available. What computer you get and how did you even learn the pieces of
and
what
then,
to learn
like,
to edit?
back in the 90s, editing on computer was only really happening at a place that could afford like an Avid Bay and have all these complicated systems and programs. So Avid is how I began to learn how to edit. And because it was kind of a distance, like you had to be able to do things in order to edit. Like you had to have a job where you edited. It wasn't until I want to say like 99 that I got a computer and we put Adobe Premiere on it, early Premiere, and I took off from there.
Wow.
But man, if just to back up a little, man, while I was in LA, bro, I got a job at different production facilities, because I'd had some experience from my time in New York where
Working on the TV.
Worked on the youth show, and from that youth show, I got a job at HBO Studios. So I used to work in HBO Studios, and I used that experience when I came to LA to kind of leverage job opportunities and things of that nature. So I was able to keep working in television, but man, I was trying to figure out how to make it work for me as opposed to working for other people.
Mhm.
And bro, I must say that I asked my father. My father wanted to take me to Paris to show uh, his time growing up in Paris in the 50s, in the late 50s, 56 to 58. He wanted to show me. And I said, well, can I get a camera? You know, because I want to make a movie about it. And all the months leading up to that time, I didn't get a camera until like a couple days before we left, you
Wow.
know? And but I filmed. We were in Paris for like 10, 11 days. I filmed every day, just, handheld, filmed it. And it took me 2 years, but I took that footage and created a film that celebrated my father and his time over there called American Noir in Paris.
W Okay, and I'm interested already because it's like, what's a brother doing in Paris in the '50s?
Oh,
It's not
bro,
in the
he was in the
military or
he was in
something.
the military,
Okay.
but he had his own apartment.
Mm,
He didn't live
on base.
on the base. Yeah, he
Mhm.
lived in the city. And so, he lived like, a normal guy, yet he would, work during the day. He had like told me a story how he had a Jeep. He would drive from, you know, uh, where he lived to the base and back.
Mm.
And he was able to kind of learn French. He hung out with like Art Blakey
Hmm.
and different people who would come over during that time to
Wow.
play jazz. So he loved jazz. But that time over there gave him a uniqueness. So when he came back to America, he understood. This was also prior to the Civil Rights Act, it's prior to Brown versus the Board of Education. So he was able to come back and understand what it meant to be a man and to be treated as such.
Wow.
And yeah, bro, that telling that story uh, allowed me to, take the time to learn how to edit. And once I learned how to edit, wasn't long before I started to edit for other people, and eventually, I got a job at the NFL Network. I began working for the NFL.
Okay. All right. And editing is, my friend Sterling is not getting into it. He's like, Sterling is always such a no, I love it. It can be very tedious, but it's also very creative. Um, what's your approach to editing over time? What do you find where's your creative voice when you piece this together? And then also, do you how is it how do you approach it knowing that you're not the person always shooting it and directing, like, how the shoot will go?
Mhm. That's a great question, but when I started, I was the one-man band,
Mhm.
and, it wasn't long. It's even now, I'm learning just how important collaboration is, but then I didn't really understand that it was a total collaborative process until I started to like edit for other people. But
Mhm.
so just the I guess the need to want to be in the room and be at the table making these decisions about how the story was going to evolve or how these pieces were going to be put together. I really I love that, and I just push myself to be in that position, and that's where I began to learn more about this whole thing called filmmaking and storytelling and editing. Like it wasn't long before like I said, that period between 2002 and like 2005, that's where just a lot of trial and error and learning. I didn't go to school for filmmaking.
Mhm.
I basically just by the seat of my pants kept pushing myself in situations where I would have to shoot something and put it together. I used to hang out in the clubs in LA and film and do like recaps. And this was like 2004. you know?
Which is, let me say this to everybody that has that great idea, very difficult, let alone the lighting is tough. So your lenses and the equipment you have can be difficult. Obviously, the audio and the noise, that's can be difficult too. And anytime you involve alcohol and a lot of people, you're adding to another X factor. And the other thing, sometimes the people that want this always present the classic one when it comes to like nightclub shoots and stuff. Like, no, 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 it's gonna be real easy. It's just gonna be like a little bit of something. A little bit of something is a whole lot of more than what you think because you don't understand the technical elements that go in all this. My bad. I
Yeah,
just got
nah, bro, and
say
then
that.
then it wasn't just it wasn't like you had to come home, you had to digitize the stuff, so that was real time,
Mm,
and, like, watching it back is real time. Like, it would take time, and, people
mhm,
didn't understand that even though, technology was being democratized, with cameras and editing software, this
mhm,
industry, filmmaking, things were happening, technology was happening, but, it was still like a arduous process to, take, a hour back then, you had the tape. Get that
mm.
from the tape to, uh, upload was a whole process, and you couldn't even upload files back then. They had to be small, had to be under 10 megabytes and things of that nature, so you had to learn how to, export these files in such a way that people could see them on the internet. Like,
Mhm.
bro, that was just a whole not to say struggle, but just in doing that, I've won and lost friends in that process.
I could only imagine. Yes, yes, it could be that.
Yeah.
So this project with your father, and you really learn along that way. What did it feel like also now? Because you're wearing multiple hats.
Mhm.
Because you get a piece, and now you're submitting, which I've submitted now finally a couple pieces to some film festivals, like which I assume is way easier now because it's like online registries and things like that. But what do you do with the documentary once it's done to present it to others?
You know, that's where, you still learning distribution, even at that age, right? I mean, or at that stage of your career, you're trying to figure out, like, how to show this to people, right?
Mhm,
And, bro, thank you to, Kevin Hansen. He had a gallery downtown in,
mm,
Eastern Market, and so I, did a screening at his gallery, invited my dad and all his friends and my friends, and that was the first time I was able, to I think my brother came up from Florida, him and his wife, and so it was an event, and, that's where the first time I kinda introduced my work to people, and, bro, that started a whole, thing of where, now, with the last film, it took us 12 years to make and things of that nature, not to jump too far ahead, but, bro, every year we would apply to Sundance. So from, like, say, 2016 through 2022, every year we would be applying to Sundance, which is the major film festival for filmmakers during this period, and we would get turned down every year.
mm.
And, but we would use their, deadline as, our signal that we had to work. We gotta get a cutout this year. We gotta get a cutout this year. So, um, that editing process is where, I started to learn more about how it's a collaborative process, storytelling, people giving you, advice and other people coming in to kinda give you graphics. People come in and do sound design. People come in to do the mix, on your soundtrack and music and how it melds with words. Then, I'm understanding this post process, but, I'm still kinda just going out by the seat of my pants and shooting. That's, when the Canon, what was that? 5D. Once the 5D came on the scene, that's where, man, I was in every DJ booth or everywhere I could go with a camera, that's where I would take it. And, eventually, bro, I was able to kinda connect my early career or early fascination with DJing with my current love and passion for filmmaking and bring them together.
And that leads us to the documentary that a lot know, as you wearing this shirt. You know what I'm saying? God said, "Give them beat machines."
God said, "Give them drum machines." Yes,
Yep.
man.
So, how when does the filming start? It was it always planned to be a full documentary? Like, give me some of that.
Bro, I got my 5D at a time I was in Detroit taking care of my mother before she passed.
Condolences.
Thank you. And bro, when my mother passed, I immediately just went head first into like just filming around town. And in 2010, I filmed at the end of 2010, I filmed Ester at the Mars Bar in Hamtramck. That was the first interview, and first time I filmed like the Detroit DJ culture. I had already been doing it in Los Angeles, and I had worked on a show called Masters of the Mix. I was the editor on this show that was on BT, and Smirnoff was Diageo was the one who paid for it, but it was a DJ reality show, competition show, and I was the lead editor on that, like in 2008, 2009. So, and I had done a jazz film called Icons Among Us in 2008 that received good review. So, man, I'm here with the camera. Al's my boy. I go film Al.
Was it just one of those things like therapeutic for being here and staying grounded, and you didn't really have a plan for it?
And I started sharing the footage with a friend of mine named Jennifer Washington, who is the executive producer on God Said Give 'Em Drum Machines, and she's the big reason why the film is where it is today. But Jennifer she and I, we had met again at Kevin Hanson's gallery in like August of that year when I first kind of got back to take care of my mom, and we talked about making a Detroit documentary. So by the end of the year, I'm sending her stuff that I'm shooting in Detroit. I'm filming DJs. I'm filming at Starvin' Marvin's on the East Side. Like I'm filming like girl fights. I'm filming Charity. I filmed Charity, the singer here for Drake Pfeiffer. I filmed her. So I'm just starting to get comfortable around town, bringing the camera into places where cameras weren't going, and bro, once I shared the footage of Al at the Mars Bar with Jennifer, she was like, yo, this is the most like visceral footage. I connect to this, and we talked about then doing a film on Detroit Techno. So around 2010, 2011, that's when we did our first Movement. We came back from Movement Festival, and bro, I was all over that place with the camera.
I was gonna say, how do you even go about setting up a crew and what to do for something like that?
It's just me and Jen. Before my homie Eric came on to help and really add value to the production. But dude, we got on as press. We hit him up and say, hey, we want to do press, and not only that, in being fair, there was a gentleman by the name of John Collins, who's a DJ here. He took us around, introduced us to some people, Detroit Techno Militia and things like that. But he also reintroduced me to Juan Atkins. When he reintroduced me to Juan Atkins and I grew up together not say grew up together, but he's older, but he grew up, his grandmother, who gave him the beat machine, lived on Hartwell, which is around the block from where I live on Snowden. So as a kid, I've known Juan since I was like 7, 8 years old. So knowing Juan and John reintroducing me to Juan, I began to build with Juan. And it wasn't long before I was in Amsterdam with Juan Atkins, Mike Banks, uh, the whole new Model 500. I mean, his kind of Model 500 band. Um, Cornelius Harris was there. It was a few other the artists whose name forgive me, I'm forgetting right now. But once we traveled with Juan to Amsterdam, it raised the stakes. And then we were like, okay, we're doing a movie. And in the beginning, it was called Techno Mecca because we were working with a gentleman by the name of Dave Granderson, who had been filming for 10 years prior to us even starting. He had been filming DJs and filming kind of the story of Detroit dance music, but he didn't have an editor. He didn't know how to put it together.
Yeah.
And bro, we went from Amsterdam, our next trip, which was probably a month or two later, we went to Japan with Derrick May. And after going to Japan with Derrick May, we actually saw what a superstar DJ, what it looks like. Like in terms of, I think we did like Kyoto. It was like a stadium. Like it was like thousands and thousands of people like on the dance floors, like a kind of organized rave that we saw in Japan, and saw Derrick and Robert Hood. And then we just kind of saw how big the Detroit brand is overseas in Japan. Like, damn, like Detroit, and like they would have like Detroit up on the scoreboard just blinking. Like, why these guys are DJing. So it was kind of like, okay, is this like, damn, this Detroit has like through this dance music, through techno, they have created a whole industry outside of Detroit that we kind of don't get to see. And bro, it wasn't soon after we went to Japan. I think the following year we went to we went to South Africa. We went to Cape Town.
Wow.
And Johannesburg. And we went to Cape Town, and we went there to meet and interview Richie Houghton, who is one of the bigger names to come out of this dance music. He's from Windsor, but he's known for being a Detroit techno DJ, and kind of like innovator.
Okay.
And we interviewed him, and that was the first time somebody had said Detroit techno to me. Like, I always thought techno, right? And I was like, when did it become Detroit techno? And in that interview, he was like, bro, we lost the naming. We lost the ability to name the music a long time ago. So that made us, Jennifer and I, really kind of like
lean further into this.
Yeah, to really, and then next thing you know, we're in Nizhny Novgorod, Russia. Like we then began London, just then began to move around the world, like documenting these DJs in these spaces and documenting like in Russia. We went to Russia because they wanted to do a fundraiser for us for our film.
Wow.
Right. And we go, and bro, this is, they say this town is the Detroit of Russia. It's the car capital. Henry Ford went there with the technology, and they're still kind of living that. They're like the 7th largest city in Russia, but they really connected with Detroit. And so, dude, just interviewing Russians, and they're talking about Beat Down Crew. I know Mike Clark. I know Norm Talley, Delano Smith, Anthony Shakir. Like they knew about Detroit and Detroit house and techno DJs more than some Detroiters know.
Yeah.
And that was fascinating. And so we always kept that in our minds. And in South Africa, just to go back a bit, that's when we realized. We would tell people in South Africa the name of the film was Techno Mecca, and they'd be like, oh, yeah, cool. And then we were like, bro, it's just not hitting. And we had an interview with my good friend at the time, Mike Huckaby, rest in peace. And Mike Huckaby, in his interview, he was so passionate, but in his interview, he had said, he had told us the story of how he had a dream that God said, "Give him drum mach," you know, the guy said, "Give him drum machines." Dream where he said that, God said the angels went to God and like, "God, the people in Detroit are struggling. They need some help." He said God sat there. He said first he said God was sleeping. He woke up and he sat there and was listening. And he said the angels left. And then they came back. They was like, "God, they really struggling. They need help." And he said to God said, "Give them drum machine." And he said, the angel said, "Give them drum machine." Like, yeah, give them drum machine and see what happens, you know? And so, bro, we was in South Africa just thinking about that.
So
And that's what, at that moment, that's where we were like, yo, this is called God Said Give them drum machines. And
I love it, and it's gotten international acclaim, and also heightened more energy around this relationship between uh, Detroit culture, techno music, Black culture. This all the boxes checked that many people have uplifted for years. I had this question as an editor: as you're filming this much, how are you even making decisions on what goes and what doesn't go? Because now you're traveling the world with all these different people, all the, I imagine the 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 unedited cut could be 6 hours.
bro, we definitely have an archive, but I didn't start editing for 5 years.
Mm,
So we would just look at the clips, you know, we'd look
okay.
at the interviews, just look at them, and I'd always tell, my partner, like, it's gonna take us 8 years. It's gonna take us 10 years." Like,
Mm,
I would just tell her that.
mhm,
But, bro, there was there's a fear of putting something on the timeline, you
mm.
know, and having to stick to it. And so, bro, we just filmed until it was like one day she was like, "Dude, it's time. We need to." Dude, I was working on a project with Apple Music with Dr. Dre, and bro, I just remember one day just being like, "Yo, I need to go do my own thing." You know, seeing Dre make the Compton album and kind of being around as they were rolling out the
Straight Outta
publicity for
Compton.
Straight Outta Compton. Bro, it just inspired me, the people I was around at the time, my boy Rashidi Harper,
Mm,
like, Yamani, like, it was people that are around who I was telling about what I like, "Dude, I'm filming in Detroit, I gotta do this, I gotta do that." And, it just became a point to where my project, even when I was working with the biggest names, my project was more important than what I was doing, like, you know what I mean?
so now that you're not even looking back at it, when you do finally sit back and watch, man, that process alone, how long did the editing take, and how did you even go about how did you mentally prepare? Because, like, back when I used to do music, I call it, like, you get, like, lost ears, meaning that you listen to something so long that you hear something in the mix that's not really in the mix. Same thing can happen with eyes with editing. Like,
Mm.
you're seeing something, but you didn't do it. Like, my cousin Lumumba was like, "Hey, you messed up Daryl's title." I'm like, "Damn, I did. I gotta go back and make that change," or whatever. Like,
Bro.
how do you, for a project that's so intimate, close to you, and then you shot a lot of this, how do you
Twen
begin to sculpt it?
2018 to 2020, me and my, good friend, and one of my childhood friends, Thomas Quarterman, we sat in the office for, like, uh,
Mm,
that 2-year period, like, just go like, I had a job, so at night, I'd pick him up, we'd go over to the edit bay and sit there till 2 in the morning
mm,
and just craft scenes, and me and him crafted the kinda the first cut. And, once we started showing it to people, you know, you start getting feedback, you start having more people in the edit bay sharing cuts and stuff like that. And, bro, the pandemic came and, we were working with a company called XTR, a boutique documentary and film company in, Los Angeles. And, bro, they were like, "Could you make your story bigger?" You know? "Could you, like, is there a way, we need to get Madonna in here. We need to get Idris Elba. Can we bring some star power? Because that's how the thing.
That's
how
and
it
let me
works.
say this. This is how oftentimes my interview most recently with Spanky A's talking about this. Like the that's always one of the challenges I think with creativity and artists. It's like artists I look at like we're all in maybe the largest landmass that ever could exist, like Panacea or something, right? And the distribution for that artistry to masses amongst the other nation where people are, it maybe only be like 2 or 3 border crossings. Like the distribution outlets is very limited of how it's limited. And they usually are always thinking from like that same lens, which is like more star power probably ensures we'll get some money back from this. So that's what's uplifted.
And then like to you know to our idea, we was like, we got the stars. We got Juan Atkins. We got Kevin Saunderson. We
Yeah.
got Eddie Fowlkes. We got Blake Baxter. We got Santonio Echols. Kevin Saunderson. We got the stars, right?
Yeah.
And but they weren't necessarily buying it, and they were about to invest a serious amount of capital so we could get to the finish line. And bro, just then there became another edit where we brought in a gentleman by the name of Doug Blush, who worked on the film 20 Feet from Stardom, which won an Academy Award. We brought him in to be like a story editor. Then we brought in my boy, who's an incredible editor. He's from Chicago. His name was Charles Little. We brought him in for like a 3-week period, 3 to 4 week period. We brought Doug Blush in for just consulting and things of that nature. But those two gentlemen helped me kind of craft what I have now. We also brought in another writer who kind of, I want to say, peeled the blackness back.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, bro, I was over there. At that point, I was confused.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like I'm listening, they want stars. I brought in this other writer who's my boy. He's cool, but he was crafting something that was more VH1 type,
Yeah.
behind the music vibe. And bro, I went and met with Charles on the first day, and I showed him what I had strung out from what me and the writer had come up with. And then I showed him the original cut that me and my boy Tom had worked on for 2 years. And my man was like, why ain't you using this? Like, hold on, wait, we using it. And he took like the first 7-8 minutes and he just brought it onto the timeline. It was like, dude, every decision that I had made was the right decision. You know what I mean? But I had to go through kind of this hazing of having to re-edit my story, re-edit it in a way that, not to say I wasn't comfortable with, but I was trying to appease the studio. I was trying to appease, just everybody now.
And oftentimes it's like even the certainty within yourself, because now that it's like, okay, let me really rewatch this back to like the eyes being fresh and the mind being fresh. And it's like, okay, now that I can dig deep, this is a story I know, and nobody's better to tell the story than you.
Bro. And but once Charles kind of like put me back on my original track, and then started pouring love into me in terms of being like, bro, you are telling a story that is the story of the African Americans and electronic dance. Like you're telling a story that's never been told from this perspective, and that this story needs to be told. Like people need to hear it. Like, so he began to like lift me. And so then I went back and finished the editing. Eric, we just sharing cuts amongst the crew, and finally getting to a point where it was just like, this is it. And because we like edited over years and over time, there are things that I edited in the first iteration that are in the cut that we're playing right now, but there was also like the understanding of like, oh, we need this, we need that. We need to go shoot this because we can't pay for archival, or we can't pay all this money for stock footage.
Mhm.
That process, like the archival process, the stock footage process, the music licensing, like now you're getting into the details of kind of the what makes it a film, and not just like kind of a passion project. Once you start dealing with the dollars and cents of it, and it's impacting your timeline, it's a new game. You know what I mean? That I'm playing, and yeah, I gotta kind of listen as the editor. As a director, yeah, I can push back on different things, but as the editor, I sometimes have to listen to these notes. I have to take them in, and even if I'm like, I don't wanna do that. 2 days later, I gotta try it, you know?
So,
Does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
you
it
know what I
makes
mean?
it makes perfect sense, and I tip my hat to that commitment to creating something that's so cool. What has been the most interesting or shocking, what has, like, taken you aback as you see other people experience the film, as it's come to life?
Bro, I sat in a room of 400 people in New York at the Tribeca screening. When we got in the Tribeca Film Festival, having to sit in the room, not only with the 400 people, but having to sit with Kevin Saunderson and Blake and many other people from the Detroit dance scene, seeing it for
Mhm.
the, first time, that was something I'll never forget. Man, being in Athens, Greece, and having the film translated in Greek, and then having an interpreter, kind of do a Q&A, be your, voice for a Q&A, something, again, a field theater. Like, the whole theater experience and being able to sit in a room where people can put their phones away and watch this film has been just the most beautiful gift that I could have ever received. Um, it and people seeing it and then being impacted. Some people reach out, some people, tell you in the moment. Man, it's just an, amazing feeling, and, bro, the film came out in 2022. It's 2025, and, bro, we still doing shows. Last month, we did, Cologne, Germany, Cleveland, Ohio, Cape Town, Minneapolis, Washington, DC, New York City, uh, it might even be something Minneapolis, like, the film is still moving, and, um, there's business behind it. It's not just like, "Yo, here's our link, and you can watch it." Like, no, bro, it's an experience that we're now serving up to interested people all over the globe, and, man, that's the great takeaway. For years, from 2022 to really recently, bro, I've been kinda rolling in a cloud of depression
Mm.
because when you make things like this, the way that, people think like, "Oh, when is it gonna be streaming? When can I see it on Netflix? Why ain't it on Amazon? Why?" Like, dude, that question just, could take the steam out of me, you know what I mean? But, I had to realize that this thing that we're serving up is a piece of art.
Mm.
It's not nothing that you can just go on YouTube and click the link and deal with it at your leisure. Actually, you gotta come, sit down, and watch it and, take it in, So, man, just now being able to see that, I mean, understand that, and understand that what we are serving up is something that, is beautiful, but, it's taken me, like, time to be able to be like, "Well, dang, I can't get it on PBS in here in Detroit because of whatever reason they don't wanna show it, you know what I mean? It's like different things, you start to have, like, these conversations in your head, like, "Why they hating on me? Why this and that?" And it's really not that, bro. It's just this film there's business behind it, and you just can't give it away.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those other questions as artists we always have, like the rich experience. Even with Detroit is different. Oftentimes when people say, "Man, I want your stuff to be this, and this," and I often say, like, it's a rich experience, not a reach experience. I tell this to often with new podcasters, like, I don't know exactly what's going to happen with all these archives of all these interviews of different Detroiters and the skill sets and the richness that it even adds for me, having more of an appreciation for even in this story. You added so many layers to communities. Um, it's a rich experience. And right now, our back to that presence of mind, like you say, because most people for any experience, they on their phone. Is their presence of mind even there? So to captivate an audience where that's not going on, that experience alone captures something that's different. Because now I'm definitely heightened where I'm like, okay, we're gonna get to this website, see these next screenings, and we're gonna make an experience of this
Yeah.
because it's something that we want to connect to in an experiential way, not in a quote unquote, no offense to it, because it's a lot of work out there that's from a different lens, at your own leisure way, which that's a different experience. Back to the music, like me, my sister that does films, Dara, I often say, like, I'm even perceiving it differently, whether I'm in a theater versus I'm at home versus I'm watching on my tablet versus I'm watching on my computer versus I'm even over my homie house and I'm watching, or at the barbershop in the barbershop movie that's on, like that the movie that's on when I'm at the barbershop. Like, all these experiences changes our perspective of a good film. So it's like a film that's great in the barbershop is definitely not the film that I think I would probably want to experience in a theater. And it's not saying that either one is bad or one is good. It's just saying the experience has a whole lot to do with the interpretation too.
Bro, I'm still trying to go, but the Tiffany Massey exhibit, right?
Mhm.
The Livernois exhibit, right?
Yeah.
God said it's like that. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like I compare it to like those type of exhibits, bro, that we can bring not only the film, you can bring, talk back, you can bring archives, photos, the footage that we're using, bro. Um, it's just people have made memes kind of out of Detroit culture.
Yeah.
And bro, I needed to step back and make something that kind of gave a history about what people are kind of like laughing and joking about. But nah, bro, there's a history, and this is true Black culture. It's just with the diaspora. Like the gentleman that took the picture, that's the centerpiece of our film, Norman Anderson, Normsky. He a brother from London,
Mm.
by way of Jamaica, but
Mm.
he took this picture in '88 of what we like to call a Techno Six. Juan Atkins, Derrick May, Kevin Saunderson, Eddie Fowlkes, Blake Baxter, and Santonio Echols. Norman Anderson took this picture. A brother took this picture, right?
Mm.
So he didn't know nothing about techno when he came, but he was took this picture, and over the years, this picture became every year during Music History Month or Black History Month, you see the picture of these guys.
Yeah.
Right? And they'd be like, they created techno. This is techno. But there's no story about it. Even the pictures of the Belleville Three, you can go to the National Museum in DC, the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
They got a picture
Of them.
of them in there, but no backstory. No story whatsoever. Just kind of like they invented techno. God said, give them drum machines is a story of how they did this and how, not only how they did this, what they had to run up against in throughout the world, and actually what they had to run up against within themselves.
I love it. I love it. So with that being said, we get into a close. You gotta ask this because I know, and I rarely like throwing out the classic questions, but I gotta ask this one. What's the next project you see yourself working on now? Are you, or more so, instead of that traditional question, how do you go about making a decision on what are going to be the internal projects that you're going to lead, whether that be your father, um,
Bro,
or
I
what you just
have
delivered?
thank you for asking that, bro. Bro, we sitting on a couple other God Said Give 'Em Drum Machines. Like, I definitely wanna do God Said Give 'Em Drum Machines Part 2,
Mhm.
Part 3. It's a whole universe, you know? We'll soon, through our website, DetroitTechnoMovie.com, we'll soon have, our archives of all these interviews, of all these performances, uh, anything that we have within our drives will soon be on, the cloud for people to access. We get a lot of inquiries from academics, researchers, universities that wanna learn more about, this history and this culture that, is unique to Detroit, and we're going to have, a place where they can come and access this information in the near future. So,
Mhm.
the deep God Said Give 'Em Drum Machines is not going anywhere. Like, we actually are gonna be working on part 2. But dude, we ended still trying to pay for part 1. That's
Mm.
the reality. The
Okay.
reality of it is, bro, music licensing and archival licensing,
Yeah.
we're stretching it on our, kind of film festival licenses now. And so we're hoping to, keep those licenses, eventually pay for those licenses so there could be a broader distribution of the film. But we still believe that it's a theatrical experience, it's an art experience. And we'll soon be coming with like an educational version. We have like a shorter version that we play for students and young people. And bro, so I have that, and I'm working on another story about my dad in the old west side of
Mm.
Detroit, and hoping to shoot some films here. I've been over the weekend, been meeting with other filmmakers here, trying to discuss doing some, narrative projects,
Mm.
both short and long, long form films. So, bro, I see myself as kind of a Detroit storyteller, and I kinda wanna continue spreading this, history that I know of that I feel like is unique. You don't hear too much about kinda the stories of Detroiters, in a way that's uplifting. So, I wanna continue kind of being at the forefront of telling these stories.
Well, that's definitely where we intersect because that's what Detroit is different is about. It's to do exactly what you said because it's so much of the story of Detroit, I feel, is painted from a lens that doesn't include those that understand the culture of it. So I don't like to really label as negative or positive, but you got to contextualize a lot of this. Even when you talked about being Mumford, you got to contextualize that the neighborhoods that intersect and how they intersect to even know what you're walking into when you walk through those doors.
Man, it's in some, bro, to take this Detroit culture around the world and see people's reactions and has been one of the biggest blessings I could have ever asked for. Like, I sat in a room for basically 5 or 6 years crafting this piece,
Mm.
and now to be able to come out and talk to people who watch it and feel their interest, their love, and their kind of newfound knowledge, like, from watching this film, just to be able to kinda come out the edit bay and experience this, uh, I just can't thank God enough, you know what I mean? And I can't thank, Mike Huckaby enough for, saying these words and for us to not only hear them, but to make it, actionable for us in the future.
I love it. I love it. So now the classic Detroit is different questions. But before that, they want to connect. Get a website one more time.
Oh, man. Connect with us at DetroitTechnoMovie.com. Also, you can hit us at GodSaidGive'emDrumMachines.com. It's the same site, just two different ways to get there.
Mhm.
You can also hit us on Instagram at GodSaidGive'emDrumMachines. You can hit me on Instagram at ReadyCinematic. Yeah, bro. I thank you again for asking, and having an opportunity to come up here at Detroit is different, bro. I enjoy
This was fun,
I enjoy
man.
your platform. I enjoy how you bring these voices of Detroiters and allow them to kind of like share the power of their oral history to this audience, bro. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So classic questions. Very first car, year, make, and model, year you got it.
Classic. My first car was a 76 CJ5 Jeep. It was about 8 different colors of green. We used to call it the Greep. And I went to Mumford. They be like, you got the Greep today? Yeah. You just pull up in the Greep. Yeah, that was my first whip.
But a Jeep for a DJ, I'm guessing that helped.
It had holes in the floor. I used to have to change the oil of it, bro. It was my father, for years he worked at Ford, and he worked with the Ford Dealer Association and things like that. So I thought I was getting a Mustang because my brother got a Mustang out the gate.
Wow.
No, I got the Jeep. I got the Greep.
Where's the first place you went when you got it?
Bro, probably back then, I probably went to get some 40s. Go hang out with my boys in Mumford, bro. That was the skip mobile. When I pull up in the Jeep, we go hang out.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, it was a classic, conversation starter, to say the least.
Okay. All right.
To say the least.
Now, you've been this before. So you're DJing the end of the Detroit fireworks. You get to play 2 songs. What songs you playing? Woodward and Jefferson.
That's a good one. I would say, that's a good one. Bad Times probably would be up in there. Bad Times and man, we were singing this song the other day. You Ain't Really Down. You ain't really down.
Hilarious.
Yeah, dude. Bad Times be mixed in with You Ain't Really Down. Yeah.
All right, you gonna have the people moving.
Yeah.
And last one, you could rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who'd it be and why?
Ooh, Woodward. We name that. Let's name it after Juan. We name it after Juan Atkins and Rick Davis. We call it Cybertron. We call it Cybertron Drive, Cybertron Avenue, But no, I would name it after Juan and Rick.
Okay.
The original black Afro-futurists for us here in Detroit,
I'm with it, and I know Juan would love that too. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Shout out to Rick Davis.
All right. Peace.
Peace.